All right, let's bring the meeting for June 22nd to order. Start with roll call. Steve Ball, Phoebe Benzinger, Jan Chastain, Chad Huffman. Here. I'm David Fishering. I'm here. Delphine Jadot and Richard Rogers are out today. All right. Approval of the minutes from the 8th. You guys have any issues with the minutes as they were presented? All right, do I have a second? All those in favor? Aye.
First, second.
And I abstained.
All right, Chad's abstaining. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we're good. Okay. All right, William, any additions or deletions from the agenda?
We have none.
Okay. In that case, we've got 3 agenda items, 2 conditional use permits. First, the Black Canyon Boys and Girls Club, second for the Miami Business Park, and then the Crossroads sketch plan. Looks like we've got at least a few people maybe from the public. So I will go ahead and read this now. That way I don't have to read it 3 times. This is just a notice about the public comment portion of our meeting. The public comment period for tonight's agenda items is a time when concerned members of the community may publicly voice their concerns on the agenda item being heard by the Planning Commission. If you'd like to comment this evening, please raise your hand and you'll be called up to the podium. Prior to any comments, please state your full name and address for the record. Your comment period will be limited to 3 minutes. When the light here in front of us turns red, we'll ask you to stop and return to your seat. A spokesperson may also speak for multiple members of the public. Comments made during this time should be addressed to the Planning Commission only, not to the applicant, nor to staff or other members of the public. In other words, just direct your comments up here where we're sitting. And make sure that they pertain to the matter specifically related to the agenda item. Please be aware that neither the Planning Commission, city staff, nor the applicant are expected to respond or engage in a discussion or debate during your public comment period. The Planning Commission will ask questions of the staff and applicant after the public comment period is over, as we deem appropriate. The chairperson will allow all persons to speak only once until all persons have had the opportunity to speak. Please limit your comments to items that add to our discussion. If someone else has already mentioned the point or points that you wanted to make, please feel free to state your agreement with or support of those items for the record, but be respectful of everyone else's time and refrain from simply restating the same issues. Personal attacks and disagreements, personnel and employment matters, the use of profanity or ethnic, racial, or gender-oriented slurs are prohibited, as is any disorderly conduct which violates state or local law, and those shall not be permitted. Once the public comment period is closed, the Planning Commission will not accept further public comment. All right, and with that, William, let's kick off agenda item 1.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. The first application tonight is for the conditional use permit for the Black Canyon Boys and Girls Club, and I have a brief presentation to share. So for a little bit of background on this application, the Boys and Girls Club had previously come before the Planning Commission in order to acquire a conditional use permit a little over 3 years ago. That application was approved, and as part of that agreement, a building permit was to be pulled within 3 years. That time has passed, and so now we're bringing this back before you to renew that permit. This application is for the currently empty land located at the southeast corner of 6700 Road and Niagara Road, also known as Lot 1 of the Atwood Minor Subdivision. The property is located within the R3A Medium High Density District, which is primarily a residential district. School buildings like the Black Canyon Boys and Girls Club are considered a conditional use within this zoning district. As mentioned previously, this location had previously been granted a CUP, and they're coming back for a renewal. According to section 4426 of our municipal code, conditional use permits shall be granted only if the use will not be contrary to the public health, safety, and welfare. It's not adverse to the master plan. Streets, bike, and pedestrian paths should be adequate. The use should be compatible with existing uses in the area. It shall not have an adverse effect upon property values. Off-street parking will be provided off-street parking will be provided for the use. The location of curb cuts and access shall not create traffic hazards. The use shall not generate light, noise, odor, vibration, or other nuisances. And the landscaping and architecture shall be reasonably compatible with the existing neighborhood. Of course, along with the conditional use application, this will also need to go through the site development process. which is done administratively, and that's currently being done right now. Many of those criteria will also need to be addressed during that process. And so this is an example site plan for the property. Please keep in mind that this is not the final site plan, and also keep in mind that you are strictly reviewing the conditional use permit and not the site plan itself. That being said, the location of the proposed building, in the opinion of staff, meets the conditional use permit criteria as mentioned previously. And so in conclusion, staff finds that the proposed conditional use permit meets the criteria of section 4426. It is in compliance with zoning and compatible with existing uses in the area, and staff recommends approval of the renewal of the conditional use permit. And with that, do we have a representative of the applicant here tonight? Looks like we do not.
William, could you go into a little bit maybe about what if are there any differences between I guess what you said, you mentioned it's a school. Obviously the Black Canyon Boys and Girls Club is kind of school-like, but it's also kind of a lot of other things. Was the last conditional use permit also for it to be granted as a school?
Yeah, the application for tonight and the application that was granted 3 years ago, there's essentially no difference.
Okay.
Between the application. It's just the as I said, the previous agreement that had been signed said that they needed to pull building permit within 3 years, and that time period has expired.
And is there anything with I guess classifying it as a school that I don't know would make it hard for them to accomplish what they're trying to accomplish, or make it so that I don't know, is there any negative thing to it being as a school within the permit language versus something else? Is there anything else that the city has as a, I don't know, basically I'm trying to figure out if it's too generic of a classification for what they're doing, or not generic enough, or if it works. And what the implications are for the surrounding community as well. You know, if we say that it can be a school, and I know it still has to go through the site development process, but you know, if that site changes hands in the next 3 years, you know, if they were to sell that conditional use permit is with the property, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to make sure that, you know, what those implications are, if there are any, that the city's thought about or discussed with the applicant.
So in my opinion, I don't think there would be any negative implications for classifying it as a school. It would still allow the other uses that the Black Canyon Boys and Girls Club would be using on the site. And as mentioned previously, this isn't any different from what was approved previously. I don't know if any other members of staff have anything else to say, but that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
One thing I'd chime in on that too.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of one of the main reasons for the expiration date. A lot of times they're a year. This one, I think they went 3 years because of all the grants that were involved, and then COVID hit and, you know, kind of threw off that project. But, you know, for a property, for them to walk away, get it on the market, sell it, someone else to come in and build another school or something in a 3 years time, even 3 years would be pretty impractical from a turnaround. So I think, you know, it's pretty clear that our pretty safe bet that, you know, it would stay towards the Boys and Girls Club, you know, idea and plan. And again, all that goes through site development too. So if there was, in the off chance that did happen, there's still protections with regard to traffic studies and things to make sure that it can be supported there. So,
and is the new application also asking for another 3 years, or is it back to being our kind of standard 1 year timeframe? Because I think I actually remember having the debate about whether we would let them do the 3 years.
if I remember right, I think it might have started less, and then they kind of through the discussions, I think it got longer last go around, if I remember right. But
Are they requesting 3 on this one though? Or do we not know that?
We don't know that. The application didn't request any kind of time period.
Yeah, I would think if they're just re-upping it, then obviously then the request would still be for another 3 years. But if our normal conditional use permit only has a year, I would,
Standard is. You might be at your discretion of if a reasonable timeline, because they can come back for an extension again, obviously.
okay,
If you feel there's a need for a protection there.
all right. You guys have any other questions for Ted?
You have a question. Reasons for not fulfilling it within the 3 years, is that relevant at all to the discussion?
I think it's somewhat relevant. So the COVID, I think, was the biggest one. So they did a lot of their initial fundraising, got a lot of what they thought would get them there, and then COVID hit, kind of put things on hold, and then now they're just working on finishing out their fundraising, because obviously building prices have gone up quite a bit. So they're still working on finishing out the product as we understand it. That's about as deep as our knowledge goes on the project. But
So the plan is to continue to try to raise funds. We don't need to know that.
I guess we don't. I think that's what's going on. We're not necessarily privy to that
Okay.
information. That's a separate entity.
I was just wondering, to my knowledge, I don't know if we've had, since I've been here, any applications where the person was not here to present their case, and I'm guessing that technically we can go ahead, but I was wondering if they communicated to you that they weren't going to be here, or if you communicated to them that this was sort of a matter of course, that it was going to get extended and so they don't need to be here. Do we have any context about whether they intended not to be here and they shouldn't be, or?
So I was not aware that they were not going to be here. And as you said, in my time, I don't think that's happened before, and I'm would maybe rely on Chris, or if Scott knows the.
I would just
process for
say, like, if as the hearing goes, we can only take into account what's presented at the hearing. And if we feel that there isn't enough to support because they're not here, then, but if there is enough, then based on just the staff's presentation.
Yeah. So I'll speak again, because I guess if I had been here when they did the original application, that would be different, but I think there's very little other than sort of you giving us our word, or if someone else was here 3 years ago when they granted this. Obviously, it's a project, as Black Canyon boys and girls were all very sympathetic to it. But I think, if we're doing our job diligently, in my opinion, unfortunately, it seems like there's not a lot of answers to questions about why it was extended, or even some of the details about, why it needed to be dubbed a school, say, to begin with. And none of that is here, although you could speak to presumably, what needed to, what they needed to do in this location, that it needed to be dubbed a school, say, as opposed to just some sort of medium density building, or.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's.
Yeah. I remember back from the original discussion, I think it was just for that kind of umbrella coverage. But yeah, I think your points are very relevant, even down to how much timeline do you need? Because we'd be guessing. And it looks like, Anne, were you going to say something, man?
Hi, sorry for our terrible setup here. Room raiders would give us a 0, but we wanted to remind you that the burden of proof is on the applicant for a conditional use permit. So if they're not in the room and not able to answer those questions, that really is their role as the applicant planning commission to make sure that they can give you all the information that you need to make a decision.
Thanks, Ann.
No.
We'll open up the public comment portion for this agenda item. If there is anybody out there that would like to discuss the conditional use permit for the Boys and Girls Club, now is the time. No. Okay. All right. And if there isn't any, I'll bring it back up here, I guess, for our discussion.
Conditional use goes with it, because as you know, it's not a given they're looking at other places.
You might get on microphone a little bit better.
Well, don't we talk with ourselves? Do they have-
Yeah, but it would.
So on the record, I was. Can you hear me? I was telling David, I appreciated his question as to if they chose not to build on that site, what could that look like? Because I know they're having some trouble raising the funds that they need. So it may, as you know, it's not part of that. But at the end of the day, or at the end of this discussion, I don't have any trouble with it. It seems if they're repeating exactly what they have, think we need to set them up for success best way we can.
I definitely see Steve's point. Steve, you weren't here for that original one.
I
I
wouldn't,
think that you weren't either. The three of us were. I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with moving forward. There's nobody in the public that was opposing what was presented. I think the staff's report is, straightforward enough. I would say that we make sure that either we put in, if we were to approve it, that it comes with a 1-year stipulation because they aren't here. If they needed more than that, they should have been here to ask for it. And yeah, because I wouldn't want to give them 3 years again, and that does give them time where something else could happen.
and then they could come back in a year and ask for another year.
Yeah, I would say either that or yeah, if you guys aren't comfortable with it, I'm also happy to hear reasons we shouldn't. I think we should postpone it and move it to another date.
So yes, I was one of the folks who was here 3 years ago when this was approved. At the time when it was approved, in addition, we changed the zoning. So originally that one little corner was actually in the B zoning, and I don't remember what level of B. But this was actually, that zoning change was one impact that would be what some people would argue a lesser impact, going from these business related zoning to the R zoning with the school. Would again, some people would argue a lesser impact, not everybody maybe, but at least some. I guess my point is the school needs the conditional use permit because of the R3 zoning. Otherwise, a school is not a right, use by right. And so they need this. They've worked really, really hard to gain the millions that they have raised. And it's a wonderful asset to the community. I guess this all boils down to, I would absolutely still support an ongoing conditional use permit. I was comfortable with it 3 years ago. I don't know why I wouldn't be comfortable now. Maybe I'll split the baby and say, why not give them 2 years? Again, there was some detail that it was important to know that they had all their ducks in a row so that they could keep their funding. They've continued to have funding. There was an article in the newspaper, our Montrose Press, about a week ago, that they were still having challenges with funding, getting that last bit because of the astronomical cost increases for construction. I don't want them to lose any of their funding. Yes, I'm kind of sad and disappointed they didn't show up. So my opinion would be to give them 2 years, but I'm definitely in support. So.
This will come up again over the course of the night, and I think we came up against this last week. So because we don't have everyone here, how can I get a clarification from Will or the chairman about what happens if we're voting? We need more than a majority.
We have-
because
we have-
only have 4
We have to
people,
have,
is that right?
we have to have 4 people voting. So if you abstain, everybody else has to vote, which is fine.
Hi again. Sorry, it's us. So our bylaws, and if there's been confusion about the bylaws, I just wanted to state they're online now so that everyone can easily access them. But it's just a majority of those present who need to vote in order for something to be approved for the Planning Commission bylaws. So you just need a majority. It looks like you've got 5 tonight. And then I didn't hear, why is someone abstaining?
Steve might be abstaining because he wasn't here when the original one was passed, and since the applicant's not here to present any information, he's thinking about it. He hasn't.
Yep, so
said he is yet.
this is a new application, so you don't have to have been here for the last time it was approved. This is a new one. It stands on its own. So even though some people remember the previous application, this is a new application. And then abstaining because you feel like you need more information just for any planning commissioner isn't really the way to go. A continuance would be the best way to handle that. And if you feel any planning commissioner like you don't have enough information, and then you'd vote no if there's a motion for approval of an application. And we can go over that in a future training too. I think that happened last meeting. Someone abstained, and we'll clarify that's not an option. And it's in our bylaws as well that planning commissioners must vote. If you need to recuse because you feel like you have a conflict of interest, then you do that before the hearing even starts. Chris, do you have anything else to add?
I just want to apologize that Yes, last meeting, that was on me, about the abstention. I have read the bylaws now and Ann is correct and I was incorrect last meeting, so I do apologize for that.
All right, thanks, Ann. Thanks, Chris.
So unless there's any more discussion, I will happily give a motion.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. I hereby make a motion to approve the request to allow the conditional use of a school within the R3A medium high density district. The request meets the code criteria based upon the evidence and the testimony presented at this hearing and in the staff report, with the condition that they do pull a building permit within 2 years would be my motion.
Thanks, Phoebe. All right, discussion. The wording and you guys good? All right. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion passes. Okay, William, agenda item 2.
Thank you. I see we do have the applicant for this one tonight. So this is another conditional use permit. This is for a multifamily residential building within the OR Office Residential District. The property is located on Lot 5 of the Miami Business Park Subdivision filing number 2, which is on the northeast corner of East Star Court and Future Drive. In the OR Office Residential District, multifamily buildings, which we define as having 3 or more units, is considered a conditional use and must be approved or denied by the Planning Commission. Once again, this is also currently under the site development review process, but the Planning Commission is solely reviewing the conditional use permit and not the site development plan. This is for a 6-unit residential building in the OR district. And so here's the conditional use criteria again. Obviously, they're the same since the last application. City staff has determined that all conditional use criteria have been met for this application as well. And so here is an example site plan. Once again, this is currently under review, so this is not the final plan, but it will need to meet all the criteria of the site development regulations. Finally, here are some photos of the vacant lot. Staff obviously feels that this will be an appropriate space for multifamily housing. And so in conclusion, staff finds that the CUP criteria have been met. It is compatible with existing uses in the area, and staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit. And with that, I'll ask Dean McCall to step forward.
Evening, everyone. Hi.
An address, please.
Dean McCall, 2130 Oregon Street, Montrose, Colorado. I came to you probably about 9 months ago, looking at lot 12. I worked with Dr. Feldberg at the time of purchasing that. Not knowing what was going to happen with the MOBs. I'm also the developer and builder at the Season Subdivision, which is on the other side off of Miami. We've just finished 19 homes there. And we looked at it and we were going to go there for 6. We'll be coming back to you guys to finish out the seasons at some point in time, as there's still some final plot plans that needs to be done. As we looked at it, some opportunities came up with the MOB, the medical office building change, which you guys know I'm part of too. So the medical office building, with what's going on south of town, this was possibly an option of the other lots that were owned in there at the time. That's not going to be the case now. So I approached those owners and said, hey, we got a great opportunity here to look at something much larger. So initially what we're doing is moving from lot 12 to lot 5 to do a 6-plex, which would have been on lot 12, and then come back with a complete plan development community for you all to look at that could put it all together. So it's not as much of just like a hodgepodge. So there's a much larger master plan. I know Mr. Fitzmaurice, who originally did the development, what his vision and plans were for, but with what's going on in the industry right now from the medical side, it's just not going to meet that need. So been in the community 30 years. I've done a number of different things in the real estate development side here and just have a passion for something. So we switched our plans to go to this design and try to do this because we feel like it's going to help us in our workforce. The focus is on a two-story, which matches with the two-story that's in the subdivision right there. Almost every building is a two-story. We'll be cognizant of Pam over at the drive-in. I've had conversations with her. She's very well aware of knowing her for 20 some odd years of being here about lighting and downward lighting of anything outside. So I'm trying to be considerate of every community member that surrounds us. We're trying to put this together in a design that will help us and be affordable for workforce and everything else. But the first step will be a 6-block apartment. See how it vets out. We'll do a couple options in it. Energy efficiency and design of it, fencing, parking, all those things are all in play. The current construction that we're doing will be designed to where, you know, firewalls will be in place to match up with a townhome. If we were to come back with that and speaking with Archie and everybody else, that's where the 6-plex will eventually go. Current utilization of utilities with our builds and seasons. It goes at about $1 a square foot for gas and electric combined. So they're pretty well built. We've really tried to be mindful of that with the age in place and everything there. So we're going to carry that over into this project, but with it being 2 stories, I'd expect it to probably come back down for like a $1,250 to be able to get gas and electric at about $100. So we're looking at these to try to go for young professionals, young families that can do that. Upstairs is a 2 master suites design so that, you know, if a young teaching couple comes into town, another teacher's renting, they could be over on the other side. I'm from Oregon. My father-in-law did these there. I mean, my stepfather, and he's done 19 of them. They were, you know, awarded a lot of different things and accolades for what they did and how they were able to improve the community that they lived in. That's where my heart is. I could stay at Seasons, but I just think this is a great option for us to try to meet our workforce need. So that's where we're at right now. So I'm coming to you for conditional use of a 6-plex on lot 5. Lot 12 has already got a conditional use for 6. And if I look across the drive and all the way on the other side, there's a 6-plex right over there too that's in line of sight. Did I miss anything? Sorry, any questions?
You, Dean. Thank you. You guys have any questions for Dean? No? Jan, anything? All right. Thanks, Dean.
Okay.
William, I've got questions for you though. So conditional use permit, the conditional use is to do multifamily housing because it's more than 3 units, right? That's what your report said.
3 or more.
3 or more. Okay. By doing that, by allowing multifamily or 3 or more units, what are the other, basically, I guess my question is that the CUP isn't then changing the requirements that zoning carries by right as far as setbacks and all those things, or does it?
There are still setback requirements for residential uses in that district. The CUP doesn't change those.
Okay. All right. So we're just changing what type of building and the density of said building in that space, but everything else that applies for OR still applies.
Right. And there are maximum density requirements within the OR district. 6 units do fit within those density requirements for this lot.
Okay. Do you have any questions for staff?
Actually, I have a question for Scott, and it's just really has nothing to do with this. I'm just curious. Is there land between where they want to build these to go on the backside to break into, like not break in, but intersect with Johnson School? Is there pathways? Is there enough for that for kids to walk back and forth?
To Johnson or to the middle school?
You mean Centennial?
Yeah. So there is a there's a footpath and easement on the southern side. When he was talking about, coming back to the PD and maybe possibly moving that from where it's currently platted. That's something we're open to if it's kind of the way they envisioned it with the initial layout. Might not work with, this proposed. We'd looked at any future projects would maintain that. So they may move it, but it is currently kind of protected and in place and secured to get down to the school.
And then we'll go ahead and open up the public portion of this agenda item. If there's anybody out there that would like to comment. Okay. And we'll close the public comment portion. Yeah, all right. Any other discussion, guys?
Ultimately, I supported the development across the street. Seems like a reasonable place to put some higher density housing, and so no reason to not support it this time.
No. All right. I will entertain a motion then.
I hereby make a motion to approve the request to allow the conditional use of a multi-family residence within the OR, which is Office Residential District. The request meets the code criteria based on the evidence and testimony presented at this hearing and in the staff report.
I'll second that.
Right. Do we have any other discussion on the motion? No? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, William, last one.
Thank you. So finally, we have a sketch plan application for Crossroads Park 2, a proposed subdivision and PD. This is located on the northeast corner of Locust Road and 6600 Road. And this is a site that is zoned R4 High Density District. The project is 1.688 acres in size, and the applicant is proposing 28 units. Of course, you know the subdivision process by now, but to reiterate, the first step is the sketch plan application, which is brought before the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission is invited to review and make suggestions, but no formal action is taken at this time. According to the land use chapter of our comprehensive plan, this area is listed as residential mixed density high. This designation is primarily intended for attached buildings on individual lots, such as townhomes, as well as multifamily structures such as apartments and condos. As you know, the comprehensive plan is a guiding but not legally binding document and illustrates general and flexible locations for land uses and densities. The municipal code and zoning regulations specify the land use and density setbacks, etc. As mentioned, this property is in the R4 High Density District, which is intended to provide for high density multifamily residences and variable density. The property is adjacent to other properties zoned R4 as well as some R3 medium density district. The proposed use is compatible with the surrounding area. Here's our dimensional requirements for the R4 district. This is our most dense residential district in Montrose. And here's the first page of the sketch plan. As it says in small lettering there, the proposal shows 13 building pads consisting of 26 units and a 2-unit garden barn. The proposal includes dedicated right-of-way for vehicular access and proposed open space. And then the second page shows the utility plans for the sketch plan. And so, as mentioned, the review of a sketch plan is informal and non-binding in nature and serves as a means to provide guidance to the subdivider in preparation for their future preliminary plat and PD application. We invite you to provide feedback to the applicant. I've also been sent a few slides by the applicant, and I will pull those up while I invite him to come up and introduce himself. In just a second here. There we go. Mr. Clifford.
This one first. Good evening, planning commissioners and staff. Thank you for letting me attend tonight. This is.
State your name and address for us.
Sorry, thank you. Tim Clifford, 1718 Capitol Way, Cheyenne, Wyoming, 80228. My name is Tim. I am happy to be here. 18 years ago, I developed and constructed the project across the street on Locust and Hillcrest, 48-unit townhome project. And at that time, I was cutting edge then. I was proposing attached housing, 4, 5, 6, and 8 plexes. 2-car garage where those units all were together, and rear yards that were consistent with the zoning. We were approved, we built, and we sold, and it was a very successful project. One of my favorite ones I've done in the last 44 years of doing this. My mother-in-law lived in Cimarron, and I've got roots here with family, hence I've been coming for quite some time. And she said, Tim, someday when I decide to move in Cimarron, I want to move in that project. So she made that decision a year ago, June, and one of the units came up and she moved in there. When I helped her come down to move, the property across the street was for sale. I thought you needed to understand who is bringing this development to you. My background consists of multifamily in 17 states. We've constructed 2,800 units in those 17 states. We also own a construction management firm that construction manages for HUD. So multifamily and affordability is the core of who I am. This project is all about affordability. This might be a new product for you, and you'll get to see that here in a minute with a couple more slides. Although it's R4, and we could have increased the unit count, I chose not to. An apartment building could have gone on there with the height requirements that would have allowed me to push this to about 55 units, and I chose not to. We're finding today, at least in America, I am as a multifamily for rent and for sale developer, that our buyers and our tenants just don't love as much of the multifamily attached housing, side-by-side hallway or 2-story garden style walk-up. They certainly are absent and missing the parking that comes along with those kind of units. So we've designed a duplex in style product so that 2 units sit on top of each other and 2 units sit together. So theoretically, it's a 4-plex by way of design and the way we've built the pads. What that does, it allows for many, many less stairways and hallways, and it opens up things such as rear yards for the downstairs owners or tenants and large decks for upstairs. So let me highlight some of the features that come along with what this project has. We have one product that's 1,407 square foot. That's 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. The 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms upstairs are considered lock-offs. What does a lock-off mean? It means if you're an adult like myself and have an adult parent or an adult child that comes back home, they have the ability to go up to that unit, lock that door, have separate living facilities, not kitchens, as in per se a cooking facility, but rather their own bathroom, their own closet, their own balcony, their deck, and privacy. Really affording for affordability at its highest level so that people can navigate in and out of the home. That's our 3-bedroom and our 3-bath. We have then 2 units, the cottages and the corral, which are 917 square feet, 2 bedroom and 2 bath. We have a corral called, or 805 square feet, 2 bedroom and 2 bath. And then we have our smallest unit, which is 600 square feet, which is 1 bedroom, 1 bath. What that means across the board, we average 883 square feet of living square foot averaged across the board. Very affordable, but very usable. It's very, our 2 bedroom, 2 bathrooms are also lock-offs, so that if an adult wants to live in that unit next door, they can actually lock that door and not have to go into the main unit of getting there. It just means about creative hallway design is what that boils down to. We've met and exceeded our 20% open space. And what we've done with that open space is listen to our tenants nationwide. Tenants don't want clubhouses anymore. They just don't care for that common space where they have to go in there and share the TV with 10 other people. But rather we're focusing on these features, and they're very important. We have an outdoor garden area where a tenant will actually be, or a resident, if they're an owner, will be allowed to grow in a garden area dedicated to them in a fenced off area so that they can have fruit and vegetables year round if they choose to, because we have underneath our 2 hut units, and I will point to this is why I did that. on the plan, the hut unit is back there, if you can see that red dot. That has an indoor garden area so that during the winter months, they actually can take some of their plants or their needed garden indoor and put it underneath lighting that makes it attractive. So year round, they've got the ability to do this. We have 2 ponds that are going to be put on site. Both ponds will be actively to grow the garden area and to irrigate 100% of the site from an irrigation point of view, which includes putting a 55-gallon drum in the back of each yard so that an owner that has a rear yard on the downstairs has the ability to grow a garden in the back of their yard as well as the common space. Something unheard of in multifamily housing. This is product that's state of the art. Parking. We've met our parking requirements outside. So the parking requirements for R4, we have 2 parking spaces per unit. But what we did do on the Nest, which is a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom, they have a 2-car garage tucked underneath. So we've doubled the parking on those units. On the corrals, which are the 2-story stacked units, each one of them have a private garage, 1 car that accesses their units. So they go in their garage and they will be able to go from their door or up a set of stairs to the unit above. So in the winter months or the cold months or the snowy and rainy days, they have the ability to access a garage like residential lifestyle, not apartment living in the complex, parking under or outside in the cover. Each unit has a large deck for use of the tenants on the upstairs or the residents upstairs. I think at this junction, it's probably important to say that I'm not asking for variances. I'm less density than what would be allowed. And with our hourly economic conditions we're watching today, and the cost of construction being so high that we're all smothered by today, we've taken the approach that we're building product that is for the end user, not the profit of the front end. And that's really important because I think that statement stood true 18 years ago when I was in the old building where the old chambers used to be. And I was asked the question, will people like this product? When a unit in Crossroads Park 1, 18 years old, comes up for sale, they sell the same day. And that's a statement of product that was designed correctly, laid out correctly, and has a really nice feel. And if you're familiar with that, if you've driven through that project, you can feel the density of the trees, not the homes. You can feel the lushness of the complex with plenty of open space parking. That's exactly what we're going for here, is that same feel, but 18 years later, where the economy, the value of homes, the cost of rentals are requiring us to bring this product from a 1,200 or 1,100 square feet into an average of 8 to 9. With that said, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Tim. You guys have any questions?
You mentioned that that some of your projects are you mentioned both an owner or a tenant. So in the case of this project, some of the units sound like they would be more structured to be rented, or would any of these would be sold to folks, the townhome style ones, or they would all be rented in this case?
Steve, it's a great question. We learned in 2008 not to stifle yourself with for rent only or for sale only. This product is designed so that an owner can come into it and rent it out. The HOA and all the rules and regulations will be set up so that that owner will be bound by the rules and regulations so that it can be controlled under an HOA program that a tenant can go in there. However, not vacation rentals, not daily, weekly, or monthly rentals. They will be annual rentals that we will be going for. That's important to be said because that's not happening across America multifamily. Did I answer your question? Yeah.
Parking. To pull into their parking space, it looks like they're going to pull over a sidewalk.
Yes.
Not counting the sidewalk space. When I read this layout, it looks like the parking spaces are 20 feet long. Do you agree?
I do agree.
Okay. Workforce housing has workforce trucks. Workforce trucks are long trucks. one of the things that I hate in some of our neighborhoods that have tighter housing is a truck that always extends over over the sidewalk beyond the driveway, because the driveway simply isn't long enough for your 250 with, extended cab truck, which is a common truck in the workforce vehicles. Any thoughts on extending or finding additional space to create a 25-foot parking space to make sure that trucks with those workforce trucks will fit?
Chad, I'm going to come closer so I can give you a visual. Those 4 parking spaces will be 25-foot deep, and they will be dedicated to oversized vehicles or visitors. So that if there is a particular resident that has an oversized vehicle, such as a dually that could be 24 feet, I'm not going to be able to say, no, you can't park your truck there. I can't stop that. I couldn't stop that in an apartment complex. I couldn't stop that in a townhome project, and I certainly couldn't stop it in this one. I'd get in trouble if I did that. But I am providing for 4 deeper spaces just for that purpose. We also have on-street parking. I believe that there's 8 on-street parking spaces, which those spaces are 25 feet also, so that we can request that they put their larger vehicles out there. However, as a landlord and an owner, those big trucks want to sit in their driveways. They love to back them up to the garage so that their tools and their materials can be protected, and I can't enforce that in any informal way. Did that answer your question, Chad?
It does. I would tell you that ultimately my recommendation is that, it doesn't even have to be a dually. Any 250 truck, and there's a lot of folks out there who have 250s or 2,500, depending upon what name brand you're looking at.
Right, you're right.
They need to be 25 feet or they're hanging over into the sidewalk. It's my experience with 250s. So it just makes for a whole lot nicer neighborhood when sidewalks are not blocked.
You're so dead on. And I wish that I could. I think one of the other mitigating factors is we've made our street 50 foot wide so that we would be able to sell units. So if there is that occasion where that truck sits out beyond that, this is a much wider street than your standard apartment complex that could go down to 25 feet. And that truck is still sticking out of that 20-foot parking space. So hopefully with the 50-foot street dedication that's occurring, there's going to be more than ample space to abide by a walk around of those.
So William, stick with me here.
Okay.
So when I'm reading this site plan, I'm seeing the setback in the 12-foot range, but yet our guidance says we need 25 feet. So are we truly requesting a variance in this application? Or is that the next step, et cetera?
So let me pull up the site plan here. So on this site plan, if I'll zoom in so you can see it better too. It does say rear setback variance 9 feet on the plan here. Keep in mind, this is a sketch plan and would need to go before you as a preliminary plat and or PD in the near future.
So I'm hearing you say next time that he's in front of us, we're going to end up discussing that variance. Potentially, unless it gets changed.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, Tim, tell me your thoughts on why we lose the 10 feet for a setback in the rear. That beautiful big field. I absolutely love the big field. I hate some of our subdivisions that all that common area gets eaten up by that little 2-foot strip of grass throughout that whole neighborhood. So this time we actually have some real common space.
You do.
Yeah, which is wonderful. But we're losing that 10 feet primarily, between 8 and 10 feet throughout the rest of the two called the big L of the property that hits the neighboring properties.
My engineer's not here tonight.
Mhm.
I'm not close enough to that answer to give it to you correctly tonight. I was not told that was going to require a variance. I was led to believe I met the minimums and that setback was within the standard. Will, I don't remember in our 3 meetings that we held, worried or discussing any kind of a setback problem in the rear yard. This is the first time I'm hearing that that's a condition or a use issue.
So it's on the plan here. If you see that, it says rear setback variance 9 feet.
Planning commissioners, I apologize. I was not told that had occurred. So that's something new to me. Does that occur? Will, is there a footnote? Forgive me, I can't read that from here. Is there a footnote that occurs across the board or just one lot?
Well, it doesn't specify on here.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm looking at the plan. I'm looking at 11, 11, 10 foot 11, 12 foot 6, 13 foot 11, 14 foot 8. So,
On the very corner end.
and is that a side yard, Steve, or a rear yard? Forgive me, guys, I can't see that out there.
So both sections that touch the outside other property, all of those have between 9 and 11 foot as the current length. And so, you know. a
As
pretty
an average, we were
substantial
trying,
setback.
Chad, as an average, we were trying to achieve 15-foot rear yards as an average. There's some that even have more than that, but that 9-foot one, we had a street finger coming down and on our original designs were those two buildings that sit directly under the street coming off of 6600 at the bottom of the page. They're actually flipped and faced the street. But we were fighting to meet the 20% open space. So we flipped those units facing the street. And here we are tonight with that particular design, and that 9-foot issue did not get brought to my attention.
Okay.
If we can fix that, I'll fix it.
Okay.
Okay.
I would say, yeah, if you can, definitely do, but don't, not at I wouldn't do it at expense of the open space. Like Chad mentioned, that open space is nice to see. I'm just looking at that visual. I mean, it feels, yeah, it's dense, but it's not overly dense. It doesn't feel that way.
No.
yeah, from now we've got this a little deeper pulled up here. Yeah, it looks like it's just that one building in the northeast corner, and it abuts one of the ponds that are 12 by 30, and you're short, 3 inches. So it feels like if 10 foot's a requirement, I would just move that building. I think the pond could sacrifice 3 inches. Probably.
But Scott, you're saying 10 feet, but when I read this display, it's
Okay,
telling
and
me
I guess
greater.
10 foot's the number. So you guess, yeah, what's the?
I'm pulling up the.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought 10-foot was the setback.
I would just say, Tim, as well, for future, for your next steps of this process, tonight, we're just discussing your plans and, recommendations that we can give you and everything else. I would say that, yeah, I mean, if you can make it so there are no variances required, it's one less thing we have to discuss.
Right. Amen.
But at the same time, if you can't make it, if that changes your vision, we wouldn't expect you to do that. Just know that it's one more step in the process, and we have to then discuss it, and the public has an opportunity to comment on it and everything else. It just makes it obviously easier if you can engineer it and maintain the vision that you have.
And David, to respond to that, the box sizes and design that are there are universal to each product type. So the footprint, we might have, and I don't have the quantity off the top of my head, but let's say we have 8 cottages and corrals. But if we learn in the market in front of us, with exit strategies being key number 1 from my world, that the 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom is far more desirable, we can give them more 3-bedroom, 3-bathrooms and not duplexes, right? And that is what dictates the podding effect that we're occurring by putting that square footage side by side by side. I'm sure Mason Engineering, had they not been directed by me, that they probably would have fixed something in the side yard to fix that 3 inches or whatever the dimension is, but I will address it and I will try to get rid of the variance because I don't want one either.
Tim, can we see the other picture?
Yes.
And then at the same time, can you turn around your tripod so our visitors can also see?
at it for a minute. I'll spin it around.
Nice.
This is a cottage and corral unit. So you have one door here that feeds the upstairs unit, and then you have a door on the side that feeds the downstairs unit. And this is a 2-car garage where it actually splits off inside and it's allowed to go door by door. These are hot off the press renderings. I normally don't do renderings at this point like this because we're still working through details. But I wanted to give you a visual so you realized it didn't look like an apartment complex, that this is really looking like a single family home.
And can you prop up the other one just so they can get an idea what we were seeing? Somewhere. Thank you.
Scott, can you talk about the current design of the road through there? On the rendering, I know it's just a rendering, but I can't see the print on here, whether it's called out. Is that a city street now, or will it be?
Yeah, so the way they wanted to go about this was to make these individually conveyable lots. So then they're, platted as lots. And to do so, it'd have to front a public right-of-way meeting city standards. So that's what drove the streets with sidewalks. So they're a full 50-foot right-of-way. And then also for trash service. So, each one would have an individual can. So it gets really tight in there with anything less.
Okay.
And this can also be discussed at future meetings, but is there a discussion or a plan associated with a fence associated with that corner and the green open space common area?
Is the question, will that common area be fenced off?
Basically, yeah, from the corner street, all that traffic.
It will be. Yes, absolutely. Childproof fencing so that some child can't run through it.
Thank you.
Yep. One of the things I did not mention, if I may, you'll see on top of the roofs. You may not be able to. We're designing interiorly of the building to accommodate solar. So everything inside the building will be roughed in for batteries, the electrical, the switch gearing that occurs, and the power that goes to the roof. And that if a buyer so chooses to opt, they'll have solar ready roofs so that they can add that to their lifestyle. Very important in our world where we're going today.
Describe to me again that big tank that's in the corner by the barn. What is that tank doing? Yes.
There's two things occurring in that space. That's directly in front of the garden barn that's indoors. So we're going to bring irrigation water to a small pond so that we can create it for a holding tank that's just to the left-hand side of it. If you can, Scott or Will, can you bring that screen down? Or does it not allow you to do that? Sorry, up, forgive me. So right there's the little pond that's in front of the garden barn, and then there's a holding tank going in the ground.
Yes.
That's a 15-foot by 6-foot diameter holding tank. We will take that water and put it into the holding tank so that we can create fresh water for the outdoor garden and the indoor garden in that area.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Enclosed tank, not open topped tank.
In ground, you won't see it.
Okay. Oh, I see.
It'll be underground.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So on the renderings, and I can't tell on the actual design file, but there's no city curb being added on Hillcrest there, or on, was it Locust on the other side? Scott, can you comment on that? Is that part of this development, is that the city will be putting in, or the developer will have, Tim's gonna have to be putting in curbs on the actual two main streets as well?
So what we asked for at this stage was sidewalk connections on both. The way those streets are built, if you put curb, you're going to concentrate the flow and create other problems. So it's just without a comprehensive, more curb up and down that street. It's the immediate need is the pedestrian connectivity. So we would maintain a borrow ditch between the sidewalk and the road, but get the sidewalk connectivity down both, so that the residents here have connectivity down to, assuming they're going down to Main Street, across, Crossroads 1 and down to Main Street.
Okay.
And we'll pulled up the setbacks to depending on, so yeah, 3 numbers there.
So the first number here, unfortunately it's far down. So the setback requirements are these 3 columns, front, rear, and then side. And so this is the R4 setback requirements.
For a duplex, so two units or less, 15 front, 25 rear, 5 foot side. And if you're getting into 3 or more, 15 foot front, 20 rear, and 10 side. So you'd probably likely variances for a lot of those, depending on which units. And that would be through a future PD, I'm assuming, for this site, if they want to go that route.
Yep.
But I think if you have good feedback on those at this point, and those are concerns, that's a great time to bring it up. So.
Yeah, I don't have concerns. I just, we want to make sure that you as the developer know that it's just going to be, it's one more thing that we have to discuss up here. If your design can't, as is, doesn't fit, these guidelines, then we just have to talk about it. It's not that you can't do it. So
I'm going to be very curious to see if our audience has any concerns.
Well, yeah,
with
no, sure.
with those setbacks. So,
you guys have any other questions, comments for staff or?
I love the outdoor garden and the indoor garden.
Thank
It's,
you.
and it's sustainability that you're going with the solar and all that. That's very
It is.
creative thinking. So
You're
thanks for
welcome.
doing that. Yeah.
Thank you.
I guess other than what you guys are speaking to, and maybe we'll be able to, I guess how to put it, like seems like it would be nice, although we can't, other than you describing what the process would be and telling Tim, well, there's going to be a variance. Because it sounds like he's going to have to go back to his engineering team and he's either going to have to redesign it so he doesn't have to do the variance, or leave it more or less as is before he gets to us.
Yep.
And so it'd be nice, maybe after we hear from the audience, and if they have strong feelings from the other, we can have another discussion and maybe try to give as appropriate, not a guarantee, but try to give him more of a sense of which one of those is advisable. Yeah.
Cool. All right, Tim, we'll have you sit down, I guess, for a little bit. Why don't we go leave those up there,
Okay.
if you would. And then we will open up the public comment portion of tonight's agenda item. Before any of you come up, just wanted to reiterate what staff mentioned for this part of the development process, sketch plan review. We are not making any decisions here tonight. It's simply providing feedback to the developer so that he can take it back and either make changes or not, either way. But that's what tonight is about. So just so you know, we're not going to make any decisions tonight, but we can take your feedback and ask more questions and everything else. And with that, let's open up public comment time. If there's anybody out there, come on up. Just state your name and address for us, please.
Good evening. I'm Debbie Kahanik and I live at 270 Crossroads Circle in Crossroads Park. And I am the president currently of the Homeowners Association. And we are here not to contest the development or the setbacks. Obviously, it's going to be a very nice addition to the neighborhood, but excuse me, we are contesting the name of the development. I do know that Mr. Clifford was the original developer for Crossroads Park, but at that time he did not own this property, so it was not a planned community development. And we feel that the name Crossroads Park 2 will cause confusion with the original Crossroads Park because they look nothing alike. Our units are single, well, they're townhome units and they're single story and they're stucco. They have been there 18 years. And it's we like our development and we just feel that there will be confusion. And we know that we don't have a choice in this, but we would like to request the planning commission to discuss with the developer to possibly change the name. Our street name that goes into our project is Crossroads Circle, and his is going to be Taylor. I understand. Is that the name of the street, Taylor? Perhaps the development could be Taylor Park rather than Crossroads Park 2. And that's all we had. Thank you.
Anyone else out there?
Good evening. Hello, my name is Marisela Ornelas. I'm at 2091 Locust Road, the property adjoining Mr. Tim Clifford's project. I am looking to find out, hopefully maybe I will be able to speak with Mr. Clifford concerning an expansion to his project and joining him maybe in growth for another section to add to his division maybe, so that we could fix 2091 Locust and make it part of the community for more growth for what's needed in the area concerning residents and senior housing as well. I believe that my property is 2.5 acres adjoining him. I was in the process of just go ahead and completing and updating the unit. But I'm thinking of maybe speaking to Mr. Clifford. Maybe we can do some kind of something together to make the community even stronger and also include my property to growth as well with the same kind of plan for the future.
Good. Thank you, Marissa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
All right. Anyone else? Yeah. Come on back. Oh, go. Hold on 1 second, Tim.
My name is Don Elliott. I live at 21161 Uncompahgre Road, south of town. But when I'm looking, I see around the places they put in the high density housing, and parking is always a high concern because you always end up on the street. And I noticed he talked about that, but I can't tell from the drawing are the garages big enough and deep enough where Mr. Huffman said you could put your work trucks, your 250s or whatever, they're like 25 or 26 foot. You could just put the truck in, or if you have a covered parking, it was that far in, as opposed to trying to scab it out in the driveway or on the road, because that always seems to be a thing. If you think of 3 dwelling, you think 3 cars, but actually it's probably closer to 5 if you figure, okay, mom and dad in 1 bed, 2 kids, you got potentially 4 cars there. So you always end up with 1 on the road no matter what you do. So it always seems like parking's an issue, and especially with bigger trucks and stuff. It seems like, and I can't tell from the drawing, that are the garages deep enough you just put the big trucks big enough and tall enough you could actually do something with it and not have it out in the driveway, and you're worried about it was less than 25 feet from the garage to the sidewalk. You could do that, plus the garage would be deep enough. That's one thing I just thought about him, because I see that with a lot of these developers. There's never enough parking because everybody always underestimates how many vehicles per dwelling, so. And another comment he was talking about solar, but I wonder if he might consider I think they call it that geothermal. I forget the trade name on it, but it's where they dig the hole in the ground and you do basically a glorified heat pump in the ground. And it's way more efficient than a lot of things. You just spend minimal electricity to heat and cool the house. So something to consider there. And I think in some regards, it's a lot less expensive than trying to do solar and batteries and stuff like that. So.
All right, Tim, if you want to come up and if you want to freely respond to any of that, go ahead. I think the 3 comments were actually all pretty positive. So
Thank you, David.
Oh, yeah. And we'll close the public comment portion. Sorry. And now, Tim, go ahead.
Debbie, nice to meet you. I'm happy that you know my name. And yes, we can talk about Crossroads Part 2. If that's a concern that you feel is really a negative impact, maybe I could meet with the board.
Tim,
and we could sit and talk.
You need to address us. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Debbie, forgive me. I'm going to address my
So yeah,
planning
the
commission.
3 points are the naming of your project, and Maricela,
And the
The-
gentleman next
The other,
door.
yeah, the other property next to you. Obviously that's a personal thing that you guys can discuss offline. You don't
Right.
need to talk about that now. And then, the garage thing, yeah, I mean, I own a home in Montrose that was built in 1980 and my normal size car doesn't fit in it. So, it's not even big trucks. It's just the average SUV in Montrose doesn't fit in half the
Yeah.
garages in this town. So, yeah, if you want to go ahead and comment on that, please do.
I'll talk to the HOA board across the street about the name and see if we can't come up with some sort of good compromise. Maricela, I would love to talk to you and meet you. And I missed your name. That's Don Elliott, as far as the garage depth and the geothermal. Unfortunately, the design is the design, and we're so deep into it at this point, the garage depth is 20 feet clear, which accommodates most of your standard Nissan cars and a four-door sedan, for lack of other words. Garages to design, not only for the depth, would be the height issue, and that starts to push my height limits I have anyhow. So I'm already starting to push some of those criterias just with that problem. So when you go deeper, you got to go taller, and it makes it almost impossible. I'm not a geothermal expert, but I'll look into it. Thank you, Don. In closing, a little concerned about the variance. I try to avoid that. Is that something that you folks see as a problem under the current design? Would you rather me scrap this and come back with a two-story clustered apartment building that's got 55 units to
I'll
it?
tell you right now, the fact that there's nobody here that was opposed to your project would probably indicate that it isn't going to be an issue.
Okay.
We will still obviously have to discuss it, I think. And knowing the way this works, there will be people here that at that time that
Right.
don't like it, but, yeah, and who knows? I mean, yeah, you are very, far along in the project, but, there might be some potential solutions. So, yeah, don't scrap it. It really does look, I think it looks great.
Yeah, I don't have any feedback. Well, no, my feedback is, I guess I was saying something. Your neighbor was here and your neighbor had a chance to speak up associated with that setback. And so far, your neighbor has not voiced a single concern.
No.
Now, the other neighbor is going to be Hilltop, and I'll be blunt, well, they're not here either. And I don't think they're the sort of group that is going to be terribly concerned about the setback. And so that speaks volumes.
I think your design, yes, we're encroaching into what would be the normal setback, but you doing it, you've got trees everywhere, you've got green space, so it's, yeah. And the fact is that those are also requirements as well. And the only way to bring everything in would be to get rid of that. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
think-
clusters all the units into one big building.
Yeah,
That's what it does.
having the green space and not having just a big block, I think is worth fighting for the variance. So, yeah.
I'll go a step further if I may. Crossroads Park HOA is here and they liked it. And I think that it would, if we asked them to talk on it, that they would not be happy with an apartment complex sitting across the street. And that's what will solve the variance tonight, would be a clustered two-story, 55 units in one big building and parking tucked all the way around the outside. And that's what would go in there. And I can't guarantee it wouldn't have a variance, but I would fight for it not to, and it would be 55 units. I'm only 10 units to the acre right now, and I can go all the way to 14. It's substantial.
Yep.
It's a substantial decrease in density to achieve what the world and the market and Montrose needs from affordability, and to be conducive and useful to the neighbors. So hopefully that goes a long way, because we are deep into this one.
You guys got anything else? That's, I might have to. Is that anything else, Steve? No?
No.
Chad? Jan? No? All right, Tim, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so with that one, we'll close the Crossroads portion as well, or that agenda item for this evening. William, any other business?
I have none.
Okay, do we have a meeting, next scheduled one?
We will on July 13th. Yes.
13. Okay. All right, any other comments, guys? Things we need to know? No? Okay, everybody's gonna be here next time? Probably. Okay. All right. In that case, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Meeting is adjourned. It was